In electrical installations, it's crucial to understand the distinction between securely fastening and supporting rigid metal conduit, often abbreviated as RMC. These terms, while sometimes used interchangeably in casual conversation, have specific meanings within the context of the National Electrical Code, specifically NEC Section 344.30 and Section 344.30b3. Let's clarify the requirements and implications for vertical RMC conduit runs. Securely fastening, as described in NEC Section 344.30a, mandates that RMC be securely fastened within 3 feet of every termination point, such as an enclosure or fitting. This requirement is intended to provide immediate stability and prevent stress on the termination point. This close fastening minimizes the risk of the conduit pulling away from the connection due to vibration, physical strain, or thermal expansion and contraction. The key here is proximity. The fastening must be close to the termination to be considered compliant with this section of the code. Now let's turn our attention to supporting RMC, particularly in vertical runs. NEC Section 344.30b addresses the support of vertical risers. For 2-inch RMC, Section 344.30b3 allows for support intervals of up to 16 feet, provided that no other means of support is readily available. This allowance acknowledges that continuous fastening along the entire vertical run might not be practical or necessary to maintain the conduit's structural integrity. The term support in this context refers to the means of holding the conduit in place along its length to prevent sagging, bending, or displacement. Supports are typically provided by conduit clamps, straps, or other hardware attached to the building structure. It is important to note that while Section 344.30b3 allows for extended support intervals in vertical runs, it does not supersede or negate the securely fastening requirement of Section 344.30a. The 3-foot rule for fastening at terminations remains in effect, regardless of the support spacing. To illustrate this point, consider a vertical RMC conduit run extending from an enclosure to a cable tray located 10 feet above. According to Section 344.30a, the conduit must be securely fastened within 3 feet of the enclosure termination. This fastening is non-negotiable. It ensures that the conduit is firmly anchored to the enclosure, preventing strain on the connection. In addition to the fastening at the enclosure, the vertical run must also be supported in accordance with Section 344.30b3. For a 2-inch conduit, a support can be placed at the cable tray, which is 10 feet above the enclosure, and is therefore less than the maximum allowable spacing of 16 feet. However, this support at the cable tray does not eliminate the need for the fastening within 3 feet of the enclosure. The two requirements are distinct and serve different purposes. To further clarify, let's consider a scenario where one attempts to bypass the 3-foot rule by arguing that the support at the cable tray is sufficient to stabilize the conduit. This argument is not valid under the NEC. The code specifically mandates fastening within 3 feet of terminations to address the unique stresses and vulnerabilities at those points. A support located several feet away cannot provide the same level of protection against these localized stresses. The distinction between securely fastening and supporting becomes even more critical when considering the potential consequences of non-compliance. If the conduit is not securely fastened to the termination, vibration or physical strain could cause the conduit to loosen or disconnect from the enclosure. This could result in electrical hazards such as exposed conductors or arcing faults, which could lead to equipment damage, fire, or injury. Similarly, inadequate support along the vertical run could cause the conduit to sag or bend, putting stress on the conductors inside and potentially leading to insulation damage or short circuits. Therefore, it is essential to adhere to both the securely fastening and support requirements of the NEC to ensure a safe and reliable electrical installation. In summary, securely fastening and supporting RMC conduit are not synonymous terms in the context of the National Electrical Code. Securely fastening, as defined in Section 344.30a, requires that conduit be fastened within 3 feet of every termination point. Supporting, as addressed in Section 344.30b, refers to the means of holding the conduit in place along its length to prevent sagging or displacement. The 3-foot rule for fastening at terminations cannot be bypassed by support requirements. Both fastening and support are necessary to ensure a safe and compliant installation. When installing RMC Conduit, it is always best to consult the latest edition of the NEC and any applicable local codes to ensure full compliance. If there are any doubts or uncertainties, it is advisable to seek guidance from a qualified electrical inspector or engineer. They can provide expert advice and help ensure that the installation meets all applicable safety standards.